Good afternoon and welcome to this afternoon's Horizon Summit presentation, how the San Francisco 49ers play to win the fan experience game, powered by HappyOrNot. I'm thrilled to introduce our panelists for this one, Sarah Hitt, a certified customer experience professional at HappyOrNot, and Umesh Johari, the Director of Business Strategy and Analytics for the San Francisco 49ers. So without further ado, let me hand it over to the experts. Although one other plug, if you do feel motivated to join the conversation on social media, don't forget to use the Horizon Summit hashtag. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you, Joe. You know, we all want our fans to be happy, and unfortunately, traditional methods for measuring and improving experience, when it comes to the professional sports world, it kind of feels like you're just playing for the sake of playing. While we all agree that there's very valuable insight to be obtained from these methods, when it comes to improving performance of experience, when you have such a small window of time to make an impact, a lot can feel like it's left to what you don't control, which is wins and losses. My name is Sarah, and I'm an embedded expert with HappyOrNot. And we're here because we recognize that this just isn't good enough. Our listening posts for your fan journey transform to and from touchless and digital with you, so you can bridge that gap between surveys and performance for teams who are ready to play to win the fan experience game. It's my pleasure to be facilitating this conversation today with Umesh from the San Francisco 49ers. It's our hope to leave time for Q&A at the end, so please feel free to send your questions my way, and we'll do our best to filter through those as the presentation goes on. Umesh, if you wouldn't mind, I'd love for you to share a little bit more just about yourself and the history behind how you and your team discovered this need to approach experience with a new perspective.
Sure, thanks, Sarah. So a little bit about me. I am the Director of Business Strategy and Analytics at the San Francisco 49ers. I started my career here about 7.5 years ago, and my first job was building out our retail business. So to this day, I still oversee our retail operation. Also help build our brand through developing and acquiring new businesses. And last, but of course not least, work to improve our fan experience. So like I said, about 7.5 years ago. So back in 2013 is where we started our fan experience journey. And we started with the mindset that for those of us on the business side of the organization, our playing field was primarily the stadium experience for fans. We can't control the product on the field, but we can control the experience our fan has in our building. Key component to that is fan feedback. We first looked to the NFL Voice of the Fan, which gave us some good high-level information, but we only got it at the end of the season, and there were relatively few responses. Since 2013, the Voice of the Fan has grown in its robustness, but we still wanted to connect directly with our fans and dive into the details that were unique to our stadium. So in 2014, with the launch of Levi Stadium, we launched our own game day surveys. So these surveys went out every game. Over the course of the year, we got over 30,000 responses, and we got a lot more detail, although most of it, unfortunately, was presented in bar chart form. The key for us at that time was having weekly meetings with department heads and key stakeholders to review the results, build buy-in, and get feedback from them. This helped our organization move away from our gut, but it was still hard to take action. We'd get feedback like, okay, this is great. I see there's an issue with the Wi-Fi, but which one of our 1,500 Wi-Fi access points should I fix? And that was legitimate feedback. The bar chart wasn't going to tell us that. So moving into 2015 and 2016, we made our reports a lot more visual. We tried to isolate feedback to specific types of concession stands, to specific parts of the pregame, in-game, and post-game experience. We added maps, lots of maps. We had maps of the parking lots. We had maps of where you entered in the stadium. We had seating charts by section. So this particularly helped with the Wi-Fi question. Hey, if people in section 403 or are having super bad Wi-Fi, then let's check out the access points in that area. This report was 50 pages long and the detail was great, but it could be overwhelming depending on the user and the use case. So what was important for us to shift to from here, or not necessarily shift to, but to augment, was looking at fan satisfaction impact drivers. So what this graph sort of tells you is the various key components of fan satisfaction, like stadium entry, parking lot entry and exit, concessions, Wi-Fi, retail, and how those levers directly impact a fan's overall fan experience. So through this, it gave our executive team something to focus on, and they could try and understand what were the most impactful drivers and where they wanted to push. But we still had all the detail in the report, so specific stakeholders and specific departments could look into the detail that related to their specific area of operation. This was a great process and allowed us to make a ton of enhancements across our stadium. We've made dozens of enhancements each off season, but in the idea of continually pushing ourselves further, one of the drawbacks of this that we found were these changes were mostly implemented in the off season, or at best in between games. We still weren't fixing problems in the moment. And for an NFL team that in a best case scenario is going to have 12 home games, including preseason and playoffs, making all our changes in between games or at the end of the season just wasn't enough for us. We wanted to use those 10 to 12 chances we have to interact with our fans to really leave a positive impression. So we wanted to shift our fan feedback process to being more real time. And this is where HappyOrNot comes in. We have over 100 of these terminals throughout our building, largely concentrated in restrooms and concessions, because that's the area we can have the most impact on a in-game basis. But we also have terminals at the stadium gates, in some of our VIP areas, at our service desks, etc. So fans can give us real-time feedback about every aspect of the in-game experience. So how does HappyOrNot work for us? So we've set it up so we have these terminals, like I said, in about 100 different places throughout the stadium. We've set it so if we get 30% of responses as negative in a 15-minute period with at least 30 responses, we'll get an alert. And this alert will go through a mobile device. And if it's a concessions alert, it'll go to our concessions manager. If it's a bathroom alert, it'll go through someone in stadium operations. If it's for retail, it'll come to me. So the stakeholder in charge of that area will get an alert on their phone. They can then respond through the app. Supervisor will head over to the area, diagnose the problem, and then let all stakeholders know, generally within 5 minutes, what action needs to be taken and if it's been taken or not. One of the questions we often get with HappyOrNot is, how do you know what's going on? And what we've realized is you don't necessarily need to know what the issue is, but if you tell someone where the issue is, they can go there, and if there's subject matter expertise, they can figure it out, diagnose it, and figure out the resolution. So HappyOrNot's been great about just notifying us in real time where to go.
That's awesome. Do you mind giving us just a few examples of the types of opportunities your team's been able to identify and correct right there on the spot?
Sure. So here's a few use cases. Looking at concessions, we had an issue at one of our Spirit stands. Stand was one bartender short, so that caused a bunch of long lines. We were able to go there, diagnose, hey, we're missing a bartender, reallocate a bartender from another stand, which wasn't seeing as much high demand, and fix the issue. Another one is we have this problematic wine stand where people were complaining, got there, figured out, hey, the cooler for the wine bottles was broken, so people were getting warm white wine. And if there's any wine fans out there, you know warm white wine is a horrible experience. So we were able to bring in some bags of ice and chill the white wine. Another example from the restrooms place, the restrooms of the world is, hey, one of the faucets wasn't working. There was no water flow. So engineering was deployed to fix that in real time. And we can see the effect of this in real time because the HappyOrNot responses after that tended to tend towards the positive as opposed to the negative. So you know if your solution is working. And if it's not, you can send someone else back there to see if there's something else that we missed the first time. So even with the focus on real time, we haven't moved away from our reporting. We still use HappyOrNot for our post-game reports, still use maps, but now we can get a lot more detailed in those maps, and we can see concessions experience from a specific location within the building, as opposed to just thinking about, oh, the hot dog stands were bad, but which hot dog stand? Or the chicken stand was bad, but which chicken stand? It's allowed us to also uncover systemic issues that we otherwise wouldn't have necessarily known at particular stands. So that wine stand I was talking to you about before, fortunately, that's been an issue in a lot of games. The cooler there breaks a lot. So we're able to see, hey, that specific wine stand game over game is having issues, and that's something we need to address. This is definitely added to the volume of our reporting that we send out. Our game day report is now well over 50 pages. But the way we make this impactful for our team is we send this out with key insights. We still have meetings with key stakeholders. And we've gotten this from just the hands of the executives, but to department heads who then disseminate it to the rest of their teams, so people can dig into the details where they really want to. And the feedback we've gotten generally is this is great because now they have something to act off of and know what changes they want to make both in-game and in between games. So high-level summary of what HappyOrNot's done for us. Like I said, we have over 100 terminals. We're now getting above 170,000 responses just from HappyOrNot terminals. Vastly more interaction with our fans than the 30,000 responses we were getting from our surveys, or about 5,000 to 6,000 we would have gotten from NFL Voice of the Fan. And we're getting anywhere from 20 to 30 alerts per game. So that's 20 to 30 problems that in best case scenario, we would have fixed after a game that we now have a chance to fix within a game and improve the service to our fans.
That's great. One of the things that I've always loved about the service, even when I was a customer, was that the data can be delivered to people the way that they need it, when they need it. It's so versatile. And you showed us a couple different ways that you deliver it. And these alerts are great for those who are on the front line responding to corrective action. I can't imagine your executive team wants to get push alerts on their cell phone all throughout the game, though, for the restroom. I mean, that's one little puzzle piece to the whole puzzle that is the stadium. So do you mind showing us how you customize this information for them?
Yeah, before I get into that, you can definitely bring up a good point about our exec team not wanting to get alerts about every restroom issue. I mean, this has been a learning process. So when we first deployed this, I think everybody got every alert. And the problem with that was people didn't just start to tune them out. So working with HappyOrNot, we were able to work in the app and make sure the right people got the right alerts. And if anyone wants to see anything, you can log in online and find out what you want. But other than that, you're not going to be bugged unless the alert relates to you. But Sarah, to answer your question, the next step for us has been building what we call the executive huddle. So this was in conjunction with SAP, worked with them to pipe in a bunch of different data feeds, be it HappyOrNot, parking, entry, concessions, retail, etc. So now we have these dashboards that live in one of our suites that our execs are in. And if anyone's seen Minority Report, it's kind of cool. It's like this touch screen thing where you can move stuff around and see how all the data is interacting. So for example, I'm going to use a retail example because that's my world. Last year, as many of you probably know, the 49ers had a great year. We made it all to the way to the Super Bowl. When a team's doing well, your retail sales go up. So we can see our retail sales on this dashboard and compare it to similar games or last week's games. We can decide whatever game we want to compare it to. But we also have our happy or not stats going up right next to the sales data. So we actually noticed our happy or not stats for retail went down this year versus last year. But when you marry that against sales, you realize, hey, this is probably not an actual issue. It's just there's more demand in the stores. So we're probably running out of things a little bit more than we used to, and the lines are probably a little bit longer. So we don't necessarily have to overreact to that because we can marry that with the sales data. Similarly, if there's a gate issue, we can see, hey, okay, gate A is getting a lot of negative results. We can also look at the ticket scans and see, are we getting a lot of errors with ticket scanning at gate A, and potentially pre-diagnose the issue before someone's deployed to the area.
That's awesome. Experience, it's not cause and effects. We all play a part to it. We all contribute to it, whether we're, a fellow team member, a fan, whether we're an athlete or a vendor. And I actually have a question here that relates to vendors and just how you communicate this information with them. And the question I have here, just before we get away from the data, is how does this help your year-end recaps with your food and beverage partners when talking about the benefits of these real-time alerts?
Great question. It makes it a lot easier because when you get into the year-end recap, things aren't a surprise. We work with our food and beverage vendors, we work with our retail vendors throughout the stadium on throughout the year on addressing all of these issues. And when I say we have meetings with key stakeholders, they are the key stakeholders. When we have an issue with concessions, we're meeting with them on a weekly basis or whatever the right cadence is to talk these things through. So the more feedback we have and the more accessible we make it to people within the Niners and our partners, the better the relationship is, because no one's surprised by anything at the end of the year. And people want this and they want to make stuff better in real time. They don't want to wait till the end of the year.
Yeah. I felt like as a customer, it helped my vendor partnerships too, because for the first time we were all on the same page with how we were looking at experience. And I wasn't evaluating it from my perspective and they were evaluating it from theirs. We were all looking at it from the guest perspective or the fan perspective. And it makes it a lot easier to work together.
Yeah, the data definitely gives you something common to work off of. It's not people going off their gut reaction.
Exactly. Yeah. So this visual management is great. It keeps this kind of different way of thinking front and forward. And personally, I always think it's fun too. But what's not fun is losing. And we talk about that a lot. It's come up a lot, throughout the summit. And I know for me personally, when my favorite teams aren't winning, it definitely has an emotional impact on my personal experience for the game. So what have been your findings kind of around that correlation, and how do you and your team apply those learnings?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think retail, like I was talking about, is probably a little bit of an outlier. Usually when the team's winning, our satisfaction goes up. When the team's losing, the satisfaction goes down. This may seem intuitive to a lot of people, but it's something we wanted to prove out with the data, and we were able to talk about this with the surveys we did before. And one of the things we do for our executive team is we compare feedback from losses to losses and from wins to wins. And our goal isn't to turn the satisfaction of a loss into the satisfaction of a win. It's that the satisfaction on losses continually improves and the satisfaction on wins continually improve. We had some people within the organization that definitely fought against this and were like, hey, how a fan feels about a hot dog should not matter whether the team's winning or losing. And Happy or Not has actually very much helped us prove that the team performance will have a direct correlation to that. So we shouldn't overreact to negative feedback on losses. So I'm going to transition to this video real quick. So if you look at this, the game on the left is a game we lost. The game on the right is a game we won. Both of them are from the same season. So not much is different within our building. But you'll see on the left, all those little dots are the Happy or Not terminals we have throughout the stadium. And you'll see the one on the left gets progressively more and more red, whereas the one on the right stays green or even gets more green because we're winning that game. Now, these are the same concession stands, the same season, right? But fans are reacting very differently. And this helped us show the team, hey, this is how team performance is going to impact our overall satisfaction. So the next step for us here is really trying to potentially mathematically integrate this with our feedback so we can really understand the significance. But if nothing else, it just provides good context for the executive team on how they want to evaluate what we're doing in the building.
Yeah, that's awesome. And definitely winning makes an impact. And like my big takeaway from this slide, I guess, is when we're not winning, our fans have much higher expectations for us for that spend there and their time and money to be there at the game. So one of the things I always told my teams was, you know, if everyone you interact with today feels a little bit better because they met you, if you made them smile, you did your job today. And that's really what it's all about when you're monitoring and impacting experience in real time. It's being able to listen, learn, and take action, meaning listen to understand what that fan experience is right there in the moment during the game, and look for ways that you can make that experience a little bit better. So you're right, like don't be hard on yourself if you have a 69 and the team's losing. Feel successful, because if you get that even to a 70, you've raised the energy and you've done your job today.
Yeah, and I'm glad you bring that up, because even when we were losing, you could see our fans appreciated that we were listening to them.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things in the comments in the surveys, or we'd also do focus groups with our fans, they're like, hey, it makes us feel good to know that the Niners want our feedback and to know how we feel and that you're trying to make things better. Yeah. So just the act of listening and showing your fans that you're listening can be very, very impactful.
That's awesome. Now, do you mind, I've got questions galore here about this transition to touchless. And just wanted you to see if you could share with us some insight on what your plan and your team's plan are to continue to measure the happiness of your fans as we move into the future.
Yeah, so I mean, this is a brand new question for everyone. Obviously, something we've been probably thinking about for a couple months as opposed to, you know, many years. The ideas we're looking at are, you know, new HappyOrNot concepts like the smiley link and the smiley solo. So this would be QR code based, where instead of having to push the buttons at a HappyOrNot kiosk, fans could scan a QR code. Now, I think definitely the response rates will go down. It's not quite as frictionless as allowing fans to touch, but as I imagine it is for everyone listening to this panel, the health and safety of our fans and making sure they feel comfortable in our stadium is paramount. So we want to give them ways to still give us feedback that doesn't require them to touch any more surfaces than they have to. And then there's an ancillary benefit to this, because not only can we get the feedback, but we potentially know who it's coming from, and we can ask them follow-up questions through here. So it's going to be a bit of a trade-off. We'll probably decrease on the volume a bit, but then increase on the personalization and the detail of that feedback that we get from fans. So we're looking to use this to supplement HappyOrNot. I think some fans may want to still hopefully interact with them, and who knows how the world's going to change over the next year or two, but these are ideas we're looking into.
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely needs they're shifting and changing, and we have to be able to adapt with them. And some of the questions about the digital, the smiley digital comes in a few different variations. So this is one. We also have pop-ups and embeds that can go onto a web browser that you can use. But to your point, you know, the needs and the values of the fans, like they're ever changing, and we have to continue to adapt with them. And yes, feedbacks will be a little bit lower. It's human nature. Anytime you have an extra step, you're going to have some fall off. What we have found though is people are still engaging. Customers are still taking corrective actions and making an impact. And it's still a higher response rate than it would be post-experience. So, but we continue to use your feedback and improve the service too.
Yeah, and you don't necessarily need 175,000 feedback points, right? It's about getting a meaningful sample and then getting actionable feedback. So I think we're going to end up in a good spot. And we also want to work with HappyOrNot to not just get feedback on what's going wrong, but also potentially A/B test ideas throughout the stadium. So the hard thing in sports is no two games are ever the same. So if you change a concept at a concession stand from one game to another game, your feedback is always going to be a little intermingled with not only the outcome of the game, but the weather that day, how that fan's particular experience was going that day, etc. So we're looking at what if we have two concession stands that are maybe both serving hot dogs, but we make one of them a different price point than another? Or what if we change our queuing concept at one? What if we change how the menus read, et cetera, an A/B test within a game, get the feedback from the Happy or Not terminals within a game so we can test, do those A/B testing ideas and have data where we're not having to account for the noise that will come from doing that game to game. And that's something I'm really excited about doing with Happy or Not, in our continual evolution of getting feedback and reacting to it.
That's awesome. I love the A/B testing and just the overall continuous pursuit to be your best. So thank you so much for taking the time just to share your insight with us. This has been amazing. For everyone here, it looks like we have time to take a couple of questions, and we've got a few here in the queue. If we don't get to your question, we do have a happy hour at 4 o'clock. The sign up will be over at our booth. You can go over there and grab the link and continue the dialogue with the team. Those of you, I'm seeing some ideas for touchless, and I really hope that you come to that so we can share those with product development to be explored. And then for those of you who are on, we would like to hear how helpful this session was for you today. So before you leave us, please, we ask that you pull out your smartphone, open up your camera app, hover it over the QR code, and when that web browser pops up, you can go ahead and let us know what you thought about today's session and how helpful it was for you. And then before we leave, here, I've got a question for you from Mr. Wright here. And he says, one of the things his new business, Hoop Dreams, strives for is to improve the experience with female fans that are not at the stadium, and the majority of the geographic area is not within the driving distance to the NBA arena. So his vision is to bring the NBA, its teams, players, as well as the women associated with the success of the NBA, including coaches, management staff, referees, sports writers. It's everybody, it's the entire team, right? Closer to these fans online. And he hasn't heard yet during the conference what's being done for fans who are not at the live game in person. So his question is, do you know what various leagues and teams might be doing for fans who aren't attending the game live to bring that experience to them?
I mean, I can speak for what the Niners do. I think
it's Miss Wright, I apologize.
So like I said, I can speak for what the Niners do to a certain degree. I think we very much understand maybe 1% of the 49er fans out there are actually ever going to come to a game at Levi's. So for us, I said part of my job is build the brand. We definitely want to interact with our fans where they are. So, one thing we do is we have a 49ers gym called 49ers Fit. We have one right now. Hopefully that's going to expand around the Bay Area to reach fans in their area. We have a very active fan engagement team and a youth football team that takes youth football clinics all throughout the Bay Area and to different parts of California to connect with fans that way. We have, I think, one of the best, if not the best, social and digital teams in the NFL that are constantly putting out content to reach fans wherever they are, be it on 49ers.com or on the social platform of their choice. So I think our organization very much knows, like, hey, the 60 to 70,000 people that come to a Niner game are only a small subset. And we try to meet fans where they are in various different ways.
And then we have two here about foot pedals. And actually, no, that idea had not come up yet. So we've been doing deep dives with customers talking about the change in the climate, and our challenge to them has been, if you're the queen or king of Happy or Not, how would you innovate the product to make it touchless? And we've had a lot of creative ideas. Foot pedal, this is the first, and I have it come up from two people here. So absolutely, we'll share that with product development. I think it's worth exploring. It's a great idea.
That is cool. I hadn't thought of that either.
Yeah. So we've heard Wave. We've heard, having some type, like at the toilets with the automatic, seat covers, doing something similar, like with the touches. And yeah, the foot pedal's new. So I'm excited about that. That's a good one. So
any other questions?
It looks like we've gone through all of the questions here. And again, Ms. Wright, I apologize for my error earlier. Everyone, we do hope to see you at our happy hour later this afternoon, and the link to join us at that will be located at our booth, and we look forward to seeing you there.
Cool. Thanks, everyone.